Shalom, all praises to Yahweh Ba'ashem, Yahushai Ba'ashem Krakodash, and Shalom to the 144,000 and the rest of the elect age. Shabbat Shalom. So this is continuing on. I think this is part 3 for the Feast of Dedication, going into the Maccabees. So this period of time was it is a lot going on. You have Antiochus, you have prophecy going on, you have Hellenization, the Israelites being forced to convert to the ways of the Greeks, or being Hellenized. Basically becoming another nation. Well, their forefathers might, but we'll go back to the Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. But it's the same thing like today. You may be an Israelite, you so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans, but you being brought up in America or whatever land that you're from, and you're going to be called a so-called African American, Black, Negro, Latino, Puerto Rican, Native American, whatever, Mexican, whatever, but your lineage goes back to the house of Israel, or one of the 12 tribes of Israel. So this is continuing on. This is First Maccabees chapter 2, and I'll start at verse 1. In those days arose Mattathias, the son of John, the son of Simeon, a priest of the sons of Jorib, from Jerusalem, and dwelt in Modin. He had 5 sons: Johanan, called Cadiz, Simon, called Thassi, Judas, who was called Maccabeus, Eleazar, called Avaran, and Jonathan, whose surname was Apis. And when he saw the blasphemies that were committed in Judah and Jerusalem, so keep in mind, Antiochus that came, they set up different places of exercise. They were making themselves uncircumcised. They made the temple into a whorehouse. They defiled the temple, everything. They made it to where you couldn't profess yourself to be a Jew or an Israelite or from the kingdom of Judah. You had to follow these other customs, and the city is completely given into idolatry. Here it is. You had the priests, forsaking their office and wanting to go play discus. Wanting to go play sports. Worshiping other gods, worshiping idols. Verse 6, and when he saw the blasphemies that were committed in Judah and Jerusalem, he said, woe is me, wherefore was I born to see this misery of my people and of the holy city, and to dwell there, when it was delivered into the hand of the enemy, and the sanctuary into the hands of strangers. Her temple is become as a man without glory. So the temple was completely desolate, just completely wasted. Verse 9, her glorious vessels are carried away into captivity. Her infants are slain in the streets, her young men with the sword of the enemy. What nation have not had a part in her kingdom and gotten of her spoils? So what nation hasn't had it's the same thing today. What nation hasn't had a part of Israel? Yashar Allah. We were scattered into every nation. We built up all these different kingdoms. Verse 11, all her ornaments are taken away. Of a free woman, she has become a bond slave. So now we're slaveries, and we're still in slavery to this day. This is Baruch chapter 3. And I'll start at verse 8. Actually, I'm going to start at verse 6. For thou art Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai. That means Yahweh, meaning he is, he to be, and Ba means in, and Sham means name, or Ba Ha, meaning in the Sham name of Yahweh Shai, who the world ignorantly calls Jesus. So Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai, our power, In thee, O Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahushai, will we praise. Verse 7, and for this cause thou hast put thy fear in our hearts, to the intent that we should call upon thy name and praise thee in our captivity. For we have called to mind all the iniquity of our forefathers that sinned before thee. And these lessons are going into that. We're calling to mind, everything that's written in the scriptures, everything that we've done in our lives. Hey, we've transgressed against Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai. We've transgressed heavily. And there's no way that we ourselves can pay this back. But Yahushai, he, through his blood, he paid our debts. Through his blood, we've been made free. And we're waiting on him to return and redeem us fully. Release us from these bodies. Give us new bodies. Give us a rulership in his kingdom, which is going to be here on the earth. But Baruch chapter 3 and verse 8, behold, we are yet this day in our captivity, where thou hast scattered us for a reproach and a curse. So we're still in captivity to this day. Behold, we are yet this day in our captivity, where thou hast scattered us for a reproach and a curse, and to be subject to payments, according to all the iniquities of our fathers, which departed from Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai, our power. So we're subject to different payments. We're subject. We deserve this though. We're still in captivity, but because of our iniquities, the iniquities of our forefathers, and because of our iniquities. So just showing that we're still in captivity. This is First Maccabees chapter 2. And I'll start at verse 12. And behold, our sanctuary, even our beauty and our glory is laid waste, and the Gentiles have profaned it. To what end thereof shall we live any longer? So our everything we have has been laid waste. Like, why are we still here? Like, what? But we know this is a punishment. We sinned against our Heavenly Father, Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai, and this is the punishment. We're living through that. But this is a very light punishment compared to what the nations are going to receive. I got two. This is Second Maccabees chapter 6 and verse 12. Now I beseech those that read this book that they be not discouraged for these calamities, but that they judge those punishments not to be for destruction, but for the chastening of our nation. So this isn't for our destruction, even though we got jacked up. This is for the chastening of our nation. This is a very light in comparison what the nations are going to receive. The heathen. Dang it. Hold on a second. I can't remember how to. I'm trying to remember how it's worded. There it is. Wisdom of Solomon chapter 12 and verse 22. Therefore, whereas thou dost chasten us, thou scourgest our enemies 1,000 times more, to the intent that when we judge, we should carefully think of thy goodness, and when we ourselves are judged, we should look for mercy. So we're going through this chastening, but our enemies, these Edomites, these heathen nations, and they're gonna get it a lot worse. This is light in comparison to the kind of judgment they get, because Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahushua loves us. We get our judgment immediately. Matter of fact, I think there was a little bit more on that second Maccabees 6. Here we go. Second Maccabees chapter 6 and verse 12. Now I beseech those that read this book that they be not discouraged for these calamities, but that they judge those punishments not to be for destruction, but for a chastening of our nation. For it is a token of his great goodness when wicked doers are not suffered any long time, but forthwith punished. So our nation, we pretty much get judged immediately. And this is a great sign of Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahushua's greatness, his mercy. Because he'll do it for us immediately. But with other children, he don't care about the other. Yeah, we all come from Adam. He don't care about them. So he's letting them go on, do whatever they're doing, living in their wickedness. Committing wickedness in the earth, like Edom, the so-called white man, committing all kinds of wickedness. Verse 13, 2 Maccabees chapter 6 and verse 13, for it is a token of his great goodness when wicked doers are not suffered any long time, but forthwith punished. For not as with other nations, whom the Lord patiently forbeareth to punish, so they become to the fullness of their sins, so he dealeth with us. So he deals with us, immediately. Whereas Esau, Edom, his sins have to reach to a certain level. Then his kingdom is going to be completely toppled. Second Maccabees chapter 6 and verse 14, for not as with other nations, whom the Lord patiently forbeareth to punish, till they become to the fullness of their sins, so dealeth he with us, lest that being come to the height of sin, afterwards he should take vengeance of us. So he deals with us immediately, swiftly, like a father that loves his children. Whereas the other nations ain't not so. They're gonna get that rap sheet filled up. Their sins are gonna reach to the height of heaven, and then they're gonna be punished. Verse 16, and therefore he never withdraweth his mercy from us, and though he punish with adversity, yet doth he never forsake his people. And so the Israelites are the Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahushua's people, and no matter how you Christians, you anti what do you call it? Anti-Christians. No matter how you want to spin it, no matter how you want to flip it, whatever, mercy is going to the Israel. You're not going to supersede us. You're not going to take our place. None of that. You can say what you want. But Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahushua is not going to forsake his people. This is First Maccabees chapter 2. And I'll start at verse 15. Matter of fact, I'll just start at verse 14. Then Mattathias and his sons rent their clothes and put on sackcloth and mourned very sore. In the meanwhile, the king's officers, such as compelled the people to revolt, came into the city of Modin to make them sacrifice. So they were going around, the different cities and compelling the people to sacrifice to their gods, to have them to go off. And many of Israel came unto them. Mattathias also and his sons came together. Then answered the king's officers and said to Mattathias on this wise, Thou art a ruler and an honorable and a great man in this city, and strengthened with sons and brethren. Now therefore come thou first and fulfill the king's commandment, like as all the heathen have done, yea, and the men of Judah also, and such as remain at Jerusalem. So shalt thou and thy house be in the number of the king's friends, and thou and thy children shall be honored with silver and gold and many rewards. So they're trying to bribe them. Come offer sacrifice to our gods, and our king will be friend with you. All that stuff. Forsake. Forsake Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahushai. Leave him behind. That's foolish speaking. I'm gonna go back to 2 Maccabees chapter 6 real quick. This is the same thing that you see today. Mattathias was a great man. When you're great in Israel, when you're a leader, people are going to look up to you. People are going to follow after your example. So if you're weak or whatever, like these celebrities, these different, politicians, whatever, these people that represent, you Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans, these people that represent you and try to convince you to do wickedness. You can look back to the jibby jab, that thing. What were they doing? Hey, you gotta. I remember they had that stupid juvenile video. I think it was like, VAXX that thing up. They brought him back out wherever he was and had him make a song. Things like that. Trying to bribe you with cheeseburgers to take this jab. Well, what are they gonna do in these days? When the MOTB comes. This is 2 Maccabees chapter 6 and verse 1. Not long after this, the king sent an old man of Athens to compel the Jews to depart from the laws of their fathers, and not to live after the laws of the Most High, Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahushai, and to pollute also the temple in Jerusalem, and to call it the temple of Jupiter Olympius, and that in Gerizim of Jupiter the defender of strangers, as they did desire, that dwelt in the place. So they're sending an Israelite from Athens who lived in Athens to go speak to the other Israelites that were there, to compel them to forsake their God, to forsake Yahweh. Verse 3, the coming and the end of this mischief was sore and grievous to the people, for the temple was filled with riot and reveling by the Gentiles, who dallied with harlots and had to do with women within the circuit of the holy places, and besides that brought in things that were not lawful. So they were completely turned the temple into a nightclub, whatever, completely going off. Verse 5, the altar was also filled with profane things, which the law forbiddeth. And I read this, neither was it lawful for man to keep Sabbath days or ancient fasts, or to profess himself at all to be a Jew. And in the day of the king's birth, every month they were brought by bitter constraint to eat of the sacrifices. And when the fast of Bacchus was kept, the Jews were compelled to go in procession to Bacchus carrying ivy. And I'm going to jump down. Where is it? Oh, here we are. Verse 18. I'm going to jump down to verse 18. 2 Maccabees chapter 6, verse 18. Eleazar, one of the principal scribes, an aged man and of a well-favored countenance, was constrained to open his mouth and eat swine's flesh. But he, choosing rather to die gloriously than to live strained with such an abomination, spit it forth, and came of his own accord to the torment, as it behooved them to come. that are resolute and to stand out against such things as are not lawful for love of life to be tasted. So, hey, you have back in the day, Eleazar, hey, he refused to eat the swine's flesh. And then, today, you people, you so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans, you demand that you eat it. If it don't have pork on it and you don't want it, you look at pork as a holy thing. You look at people sideways, asking all kinds of stupid questions when you don't eat abominable foods. Verse 21, but they that had the charge of that wicked feast for the for the old acquaintance they had with the man, taking him aside, besought him to bring flesh out of his own provision, such as was lawful for him to use, and make as if he did eat of the flesh taken of the sacrifice commanded by the king. So the same thing. Hey, do a sleight of hand. We'll give you some flesh. It can be lawful, but hey, make it, just pretend that it's swine's flesh to get people to go off, to get people to compel to do this. Verse 21, but they that had the charge of that wicked feast for the old acquaintance they had with the man, taking him aside, besought him to bring flesh of his own provision, such as was lawful for him to use, and make as if he did eat of the flesh taken from the sacrifice commanded by the king, that in no doing he might be delivered from death. And for the old friendship with them find favor. But he began to consider discreetly, and as became his age and excellency of his ancient years, the honor of his great head, whereon was come, and his most honest education from a child, or rather the holy law made and given by the Most High. Therefore he answered accordingly, and willed them straightway to send him to the grave. So hey, he considered, hey, I was brought up in the law. I was brought up with this, and now to betray it in my old age, betray all this in my old age, I'd rather be put to death. For it becometh not our age, said he, in any wise to dissemble, whereby many young persons might think that Eleazar, being 80 years old and 10, were now gone to a strange religion. So they sought through mine hypocrisy and desire to live a little time and a moment longer should be deceived by me, and I get a stain to mine old age and make it abominable. So, hey, what? I've lived all this time. Why now should I get a blot? I'd rather die. For though for the present time I should be delivered from the punishment of men, yet should I not escape the hand of the Almighty, neither alive nor dead. So you're not going to escape from the Heavenly Father. It's better to die in righteousness. I'm going to go back to the first Maccabees. Slaki just got a little sidetrack, but just showing that they're calling, elders to these feasts to try to get more and more Israelites to go off. But not everybody was doing that. While there was multitudes that did follow after the heathen, that were probably scared and followed them or whatever, the fear of death. But you had others that would rather have been put to death than to tarnish, what the Heavenly Father had given them. This is First Maccabees chapter 2 and verse 19. Then Mattathias answered and spake with a loud voice, through all the nations that are under the king's dominion obey him. Though all the nations that are under the king's dominion obey him, and fall every one under the religion of their fathers, and give consent to his commandments, yet will I and my sons and my brethren walk in the covenant of our fathers? Most High forbid that we should forsake the law and the ordinances. So this is where they're standing up for the laws, statutes, and commandments for Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahushai. Yet will I and my sons and my brethren walk in the covenant of our fathers. The Most High forbid that we should forsake the law and the ordinances. We will not hearken unto the king's words to go from our religion, either on the right hand or on the left. Now, when he had left speaking these words, there came one of the Jews in the sight of all the sacrifice on the altar which was at Modin, according to the king's commandment. So, as he was saying that, it came up a simple Jake, simple Israelite, simple Jew walking up the sacrifice, completely giving in. Verse 24, which thing when Mattathias saw, he was inflamed with zeal, and his reins trembled, neither could he forbear to show his anger according to the judgment, wherefore he ran and slew him upon the altar. So keep in mind, John chapter 20 and 22, what I first read in the first video, that Yahushua went and celebrated this day. He went to this feast of dedication. And this is pretty much how this started. It started with Mattathias, filled with zeal for the Heavenly Father, Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahushai. Verse 1 Maccabees chapter 2 and verse 24, which thing when Mattathias saw, he was inflamed with zeal, and his reins trembled, neither could he forbear to show his anger according to judgment. Wherefore he ran and slew him upon the altar. So again, it's about Yahushua, who the world ignorantly calls Jesus. Yahushua wasn't for everybody. He was for his people. The same thing, the Maccabees, for the Israelites, for your people. So Mattathias slew this man, verse 25. Also the king's commissioner who compelled men to sacrifice, he killed at the time, and the altar he pulled down. So he killed both those men, the men that man that went and sacrificed, the man that was trying to compel others to sacrifice on this altar. He pulled down the altar. Thus he dealt zealously for the law of Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahushai, like Phinehas did unto Zambri, the son of Salom. So you can read about Phinehas in the book of Numbers. He ran through. They had one of the one of the women from Midian, I believe, and he was, they were getting it on in the tabernacle. And Phinehas ran through and stabbed both of them with the javelin, killed them both. And that zeal that Phinehas had, what's the word? You know what? Let me just go to the account. This is Numbers chapter 25 and verse 6. And behold, one of the children, and this is at the same time, because Balaam and Balak, he was trying to find ways, or I believe Balaam was trying to find different ways to curse the Israelites, because he was afraid of them. So he's trying to find different ways for them to get rid of them when they were traveling through the land after we came out from Egypt. This is Numbers chapter 25 and verse 6. And behold, one of the children of Israel came and brought unto his brethren a Midianitess woman in the sight of Moses, and in the sight of all the congregation of the children of Israel, who were weeping before the door of the tabernacle of the congregation, because at this time, Yahweh Shimei Shai was sending the plague. And when Phinehas, the son of Eleazar, the son of Aaron the priest, saw it, he rose up from among the congregation and took a javelin in his hand. And he went after the man of Israel into the tent and thrust them both through, the man of Israel and the woman through her belly. So the plague was stayed from the children of Israel. So just that what Phinehas did, that stayed the plague. You know, that zeal, sufficed. First Maccabees chapter 2 and verse 27, and Mattathias cried throughout the city with a loud voice, saying, whosoever is zealous of the law and maintaineth the covenant, let him follow me. And also keep in mind that Yahweh Shai, he didn't break any of the laws. He didn't tell people to break the laws. And Yahweh Shai was all about his father's business. Verse 28, so he and his sons fled into the mountains and left all that they ever had in the city. Then many sought after the justice and judgment went down into the wilderness to dwell there. Then many that sought after justice and judgment went down into the wilderness to dwell there, both they and their children and their wives and their cattle, because afflictions increased sore upon them. So this is that beginning of the Maccabean revolt. This is them. They said, we're not doing this. We're going to flee into the wilderness. Verse 31, now when it was told the king's servants and the host that was in Jerusalem in the city of David, that certain men who had broken the king's commandment were gone down to the secret places in the wilderness, they pursued after them a great number, and having overtaken them, they encamped against them and made war against them on the Sabbath day. Verse 33, and they said unto them, let that which ye have done hitherto suffice. Come forth and do according to the commandments of the king, and ye shall live. So they're making, if you do what the king says, you follow, that you leave, like what I've been going into. You leave the law, statutes, commandments of Yahweh Shimei Shai, which if you leave the law, statutes, commandments of Yahweh Shimei Shai, that's death. But they're saying, if you follow after the king, you'll have life. But if you believe Yahweh Shimei Shai, you'll know that that's death. You leaving Yahweh Shimei Shai, and man, you following after death. First Maccabees chapter 2 and verse 33, and they said unto them, let that which ye have done hitherto suffice. Come forth and do according to the commandment of the king, and ye shall live. But they said, we will not come forth, neither will we do the king's commandment to profane the Sabbath day. So then they gave them the battle with all speed. Howbeit they answered them not, neither cast they a stone at them, nor stopped the places where they lay hid, but said, let us die in all our innocency. Heaven and earth will testify for us that ye put us to death wrongfully. So that blood crying out. They said we're going to die innocent. We're not going to break the Sabbath. We're not going to do any of that. So they ended up getting killed. Verse 38, so they rose up against them in battle on the Sabbath, and they slew them with their wives, their children, and their cattle, to the number of 1,000 people. So they slew them all. In cold blood. They say, hey, we're not We're not gonna do after the king's commandment. We're not gonna fight you. None of that. We're not even gonna stop the doors. We're not even gonna try to stop you. We're gonna die innocent, and this innocent blood is gonna be on your head. And they killed him, and guess what? That blood is on their head. On their head. And Yahushua is gonna avenge his people. Verse 39. Now when Mattathias and his friends understood hereof, they mourned for them right sore. And one of them said to another, if we all do as our brethren have done, and fight not for our lives and laws against the heathen, they will now quickly root us out of the earth. So we gotta fight. If we don't, they're gonna root us out. At that time, therefore, they decreed, saying, whosoever shall come to make battle with us on the Sabbath day, we will fight against him. Neither will we die all as our brethren that were murdered in the secret places. So if anybody wants a battle, they can get it any day of the week. Now, we're not gonna die like this. We're fighting for our laws. We're fighting for our lives. So I'll keep reading. This is First Maccabees chapter 2 and verse 42. Then came there unto him a company of Assyrians who were mighty men of Israel, even all such as were voluntarily devoted unto the law. Also all they that fled for persecution joined themselves unto them, and were a stay unto them. So they joined their forces and smote sinful men in their anger, and wicked men in their wrath, but the rest fled to the heathen for succor. Verse 45, then Mattathias and his friends went round about and pulled down the altars, and what children soever they found within the coast of Israel uncircumcised, those they circumcised valiantly. They pursued also the proud men, and the work prospered in their hand. So they recovered the law out of the hand of the Gentiles, and out of the kings, and out of the hand of kings. Neither suffered they the sinner to triumph. So they were going around circumcising. They were committing good works. They were doing valiantly for Yahweh B'Shem Yahushai. Now when the time drew near that Mattathias should die, he said unto his sons, now have pride and rebuke God in strength, and the time of destruction and the wrath of indignation. Now therefore, my sons, be ye zealous for your law, and give your lives to the covenant of your fathers. Call to remembrance what acts our fathers did in their time, so shall you receive great honor and an everlasting name. And it continues, this is good reading. It was not Abraham found faithful in temptation, and it was imputed unto him for righteousness? Joseph in the time of distress kept the commandment and was made Lord of Egypt. Phinehas our father, being zealous and fervent, obtained the covenant of an everlasting priesthood. And says Jesus, but this is referring to Joshua, or his name is Yahushai. Yahushai, fulfilling the word, was made a judge in Israel. Caleb, for bearing witness before the congregation, received inheritance of the land. David, for being merciful, possessed the throne of an everlasting kingdom. So even all these showing you the scriptures were written for our learning. We can read about all these men, these great men of the scriptures. Elias, for being zealous and fervent for the law, was taken up into heaven. Ananias, Azarias, and Mishael, by believing, were saved out of the flame. Daniel, for his innocency, was delivered from the mouth of lions. And thus consider ye throughout all ages that none that put their trust in him shall be overcome. So they put your trust in Yahweh B'Shem Yahushai. All these men were delivered. All these men believed in Yahweh B'Shem Yahushai. And all these men that were written about, these great men, were all Israelites. Fear not then the words of a sinful man, for his glory shall be dung and worms. So don't fear these wicked Israelites. They're gonna come. I'm not wicked Israelites. Well, wicked Israelites and wicked Edomites. All the wicked workers, all the workers of iniquity. Don't fear them, because especially Esau, Edom, he's about to come down with the hammer. He's about to come down with great wrath. But his kingdom is at the same time he's coming with that great wrath. His kingdom is collapsing. His kingdom is getting ready to be brought to nothing. Verse 63, today he shall be lifted up, and tomorrow he shall not be found, because he is returned into his dust, and his thought is come to nothing. 64, wherefore ye, my sons, be valiant, and show yourselves men in the behalf of the law, for by it ye shall obtain glory. And I'm going to keep reading just two more. And behold, I know that your brother Simon is a man of counsel. Give ear unto him always. He shall be a father unto you. As for Judas Maccabeus, he have been mighty and strong, even from his youth up. Let him be your captain and fight fight the battle of the people. 67. Take also. So this is when a Judas Maccabeus. This is who ended up taking over this revolt, who ended up leading it. This was given to him by his father, Mattathias. Verse 67, take also unto you all those that observe the law, and avenge ye the wrong of your people. Recompense fully the heathen, and take heed to the commandments of the law. So he blessed him and was gathered to his fathers, meaning he died. So let's see here. Let's see. This is 1 Maccabees chapter 3 and verse 42. Now when Judas and his brethren saw that the miseries were multiplied, and that the forces did encamp themselves in the borders, for they knew how the king had given commandment to destroy the people and utterly abolish them, they said one to another, let us restore the decayed fortune of our people. Let us fight for our people and the sanctuary. And when the congregation gathered together, that they might be ready for battle, and that they might pray and ask mercy and compassion. So during this time, they're getting ready to go to battle. This is a major thing, and we're fighting in these days. While we're not physically fighting right now, we're fighting a spiritual battle. But we take the inspiration because, this is eventually like I said, Esau Edom is going to come down with great wrath. This is going to get physical. And he's going to be hunting down the men of Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahushai. First Maccabees chapter 3 and verse 45. Now Jerusalem lay void as a wilderness. There was none of her children that went in or out. The sanctuary also was trodden down, and aliens kept a stronghold, and the heathen had their habitation in that place. And joy was taken from Jacob, and the pipe with the harp ceased. So this is a bad time for Jake. The heathen ruling over it is bad. The people became heathens. Wherefore the Israelites assembled themselves together and came to Mashpah over against Jerusalem. For in Mashpah was the place where they prayed aforetime in Israel. Then they fasted that day and put on sackcloth and cast ashes upon their heads and rent their clothes and laid open the book of the law, wherein the heathen had sought to paint the likeness of their images. So we use this scripture, to show that today, paired with Job 9:24, the earth is given into the hand of the wicked. He covereth the faces of the judges. If not, where and who is he? We use that scripture and we'll pair it with this one to show that they painted their images. How you see the Renaissance paintings, how you see, Jesus painted like Jared Leto, or Caesar Borgia or Sir Prappus, And I'm about to close out. But from here, the heathen had done so much. They destroyed the books. They painted their own image. They did all that. But the Maccabees, they were fighting. They were rebelling. They had what you call guerrilla tactics. They would show up on them. And I'm going to jump down to the thing. Let's see here. I'm going to start at verse 35 and I'm going to jump around a little bit. This is 1 Maccabees chapter 4 and verse 35. Now when Lysias saw his army put to flight and the manliness of Judas's soldiers and how they were ready to either live or die valiantly, he went to Antiochia and gathered together a company of strangers, and having made his great army greater than it was, he purposed to come again into Judea, and then said Judas and his brethren, Behold, our enemies are discomfited. Let us go up and cleanse and dedicate the sanctuary. So you can read the chapters. He had a battle with Lysias. He had many battles. Then said Judas and his brethren, Behold, our brethren, Slakia. Let me slow down. Let me read it again. Then said Judas and his brethren, Behold, our enemies are discomfited. Let us go up to cleanse and dedicate the sanctuary. Upon this all the hosts assembled themselves together and went up into Mount Zion. And when they saw the sanctuary desolate, and altar profane, and gates turned up, and shrubs growing in the courts as in a forest, or in one of the mountains, yea, and the priest's chambers pulled down. So you see in the temple desolate. They rent their clothes and made great lamentation and cast ashes upon their heads and fell down flat to the ground upon their faces and blew an alarm with the trumpets and cried toward heaven. Then Judas appointed certain men to fight against those that were in the fortress until he had cleansed the sanctuary. So he chose priests of blameless conversation, such as had pleasure in the law, who cleansed the sanctuary and bare out the defiled stones into an unclean place. And when, as they consulted what to do with the altar of burnt offerings, which was profaned, they thought it best to pull it down, lest it should be a reproach to them, because the heathen had defiled it, wherefore they pulled it down. So, everything had to go. They pulling out the stones that are defiled, the altar that was defiled. They're cleaning up, renovating. A rededication to the temple. Verse 46, and laid up stones in the mountains of the temple in a convenient place until there should come a prophet to show what should be done with them. Then they took whole stones according to the law and built a new altar according to the former, and made up the sanctuary and the things that were within the temple, and hallowed the courts. So they brought new stones in, made it, and then hallow means to be holy. So they made the place holy again. And they made also new vessels, and into the temple they brought the candlestick and the altar of burnt offerings and of incense and the table. And upon the altar they burned incense, and the lamps that were upon the candlestick they lighted, that they might give light in the temple. Furthermore, they set loaves upon the table and spread out the veils, and finished all the works which they had begun to make. Now this is going back to the first chapter. Now on the 5 and 20th day of the 9th month, which is called the month Caslu, which is the month that we're in now. Now the 25th day will be, begin Sunday evening. So now on the 25th day of the 9th month Caslu, which is called in the 9th month, which is called Caslu, in the 148th year, they rose up betime in the morning, and offered sacrifice according to the law upon the new altar of burnt offerings which they had made. Verse 54. Look at what time and what day the heathen had profaned it, even in that it was dedicated with songs, cisterns, and harps and cymbals. So this is why it's on that day. This is why it started on the 15th. This desolation of the temple, it started on the 15th of the month Caslu, and then years later, it ended on the 25th. Look at what time and what day the heathen had profaned it, even that it was dedicated with songs and cisterns and harps and cymbals. Then all the people fell upon their faces, worshiping and praising the power of heaven, who had given them good success. And so they kept the dedication of the altar 8 days, and offered burnt offerings with gladness, and sacrificed the sacrifice of deliverance and praise. So this is why it's kept 8 days. This is why it's on the 25th day of Caslu. This is also why Yahushua celebrated this day. And also, if this wasn't written, if this wasn't taken out of the scriptures, you would know about this. This would be more known. So this is pretty much it. Lord willing, this is edifying. And the water, Yahweh Bashem Yahushai, Bashem Kwakwadosh, for giving me the spirit to do this lesson. And all praises to Yahweh Bashem Yahushai, Bashem Kwakwadosh. Shalom.